In my opinion, I think it's mandatory that everyone has a delectable go-to date night dish. But sometimes you might run into issues if your date happens to be vegan, vegetarian, or plant-based. Now I know for me, growing up, a real splurge for me was vodka sauce. It was my absolute #1 favorite dish for most of my life. And since going more plant-based, I've struggled to find a combination that I really love that can recreate those flavors. But after a lot of research and development over the past couple years, I think I found a version that's worth sharing so that if you want to have a delectable date night, this should be your go-to recipe. Now, if you don't know what vodka sauce is, it is very similar to a traditional tomato sauce, and then usually you're adding cream, vodka, and usually a salted meat that usually ends up being prosciutto. Now today we're not using any of those 3 ingredients, so we have to figure out viable alternatives that will work. Now if you've seen my video on how to make a tomato sauce, you're gonna see a lot of similarities here, and then really tweaks towards the end are really going to be what makes this dish stand out. Now tomatoes are a great source of vitamin C, potassium, and other vitamins and minerals, especially things like lycopene. We have the garlic and onions here that form the base of our flavor and also have a variety of different beneficial health properties. And then it gets down into the nitty-gritty where we have to find viable substitutes. Now the more common substitution here is going to be for the cream itself. So instead of using dairy cream, today we're going to be making our own cashew cream. And as with most recipes, being properly prepared is going to get you the best results. So technically, I begun to prepare this dish last night when I soaked about half a cup of cashews in water and let that stand in a bowl overnight. The reason we soak these cashews is so they form a creamier texture. They will absorb some of that water and you won't get as grainy of a final product. Now, if for whatever reason you can't do it overnight, you can put your cashews in a warm water or hot water bath for about 15 to 20 minutes. You won't get the same results, but they will be pretty comparable. But if you held me to it, I would strongly suggest soaking them overnight. So we're gonna add them to a blender with twice the amount of water. So this is half a cup of cashews, like I mentioned, so I'm using a full cup of water. This is actually a mixture of a homemade veggie stock and water just to add a little bit more depth of flavor. And this is where the prosciutto substitution comes into play. So how do we recreate a salty meat flavor in a dish that is meatless? Well, for me, one of the go-to ingredients is a miso paste. Why is he using a Japanese ingredient in an Italian dish? Well, when you're making substitutions for plant-based versions of dishes, you have to be a little bit more creative and think outside the box in terms of your pantry ingredients. So logically, miso paste brings a great deal of umami flavor and salinity to our cream sauce. This will make up for some of that meaty flavor. Now there's another ingredient that I will add later that also makes up for kind of the smoky flavor you get from a salted meat, but hold on. So once we have our cashew cream made, it's now time to start the tomato sauce. Now, like I said, if you saw my video from a few weeks ago, it's gonna start off very similarly. So we're gonna add a little bit of olive oil to our pan here, get that set to a medium heat, and then we're gonna sweat off our onions and garlic for about 4 to 5 minutes until that onion is translucent. We're also gonna add a pinch of salt here to help sweat those aromatics down. Once that's done, we're gonna add our tomatoes, onion powder, garlic powder, and then smoked paprika. Now, smoked paprika will add a little bit of that smoky element that you're not really gonna get from the miso. So the combination of the miso and the paprika kind of help make up for that meaty type flavor together. Once we bring this to a boil, we're gonna cover this and reduce it to a simmer and allow it to kind of thicken for a little bit. Then with about 5 minutes left, you wanna add your cashew cream sauce, and we're gonna stir this to combine so that everything is evenly folded in. Finally, we're gonna add a scoop of our pasta water to help thicken up this sauce even more. And then if we need to add more salt and pepper, you can do that to your liking. Today, I'm using a red lentil pasta to go with this. It'll bring a ton of protein and fiber to the dish that really isn't there too much otherwise. And then you could add your desired garnishes. So today, I'm going to be adding some red chili flakes. And I also roasted some broccolini that will pair well and add some green to the dish. If you want, you could easily add chopped parsley or basil or other herbs as well. And this to me is the absolute perfect date night dish in my opinion. And if you don't want to take my word for it, why don't you try it yourself at home and let me know down in the comments. I think if I've learned anything going more plant-based, it's being open to using ingredients from other cultures and then basically making fusion type dishes in ways that really don't appear obvious off the top of my head. So even though I might have committed a mortal sin by adding miso to an Italian dish, I think your taste buds will kind of agree with me at the end of the day but let me know. So if you're open to culture clashing, let me know down in the comments, and let me know how you enjoyed this healthier version of a classic dish. See you guys next week.